The world unfolds differently for each of us. Why? Where do the rules come from? Within each of us, there is a unique philosophy shaping our thoughts, beliefs, feelings, worldviews, and actions. This is Inner Dialogues with Ecem, an introspective space for curious souls and minds. This is where you get to understand your individual philosophy that writes the script of your life. This is where we unveil the inner wisdom that guides you. Yep, that was your inner sage knocking the door. Let's go and chat with him. Hi, it's Ecem. Welcome back to Inner Dialogues with me. Today I want to talk about downtime and productivity. But as I experienced a couple of things for the last couple of days, I need to get them off my chest and share it with you. And I think they're quite connected to downtime and productivity and the things I have in mind to say about them. Let me start by a couple of questions which would sound weird and out of place, maybe for the time's sake. Why do ideas come to us in the shower or in the toilet or as we are trying to fall asleep? What do you think when you hear the term monkey mind? What do you think about the phrase hustle culture? How to heal? Does it take so much effort or does it take time or both? Should we let go in order to heal? Should we sit with it in order to heal? What does healing mean to you? Does it mean recovery for you? I'm going to jump right into a story that is very real and very fresh and clear. My grandma has dementia, specifically Alzheimer's. She has a limited short-term memory, but a good, probably rewritten long-term memory of what she went through in the past. Although her memories fly away, I realized that certain social rules and norms that was dictated to her throughout her whole life do not fly away. They depict themselves as shame, blame, and guilt, and as feelings of sadness, resentment, unworthiness, and appreciation. People with dementia can easily become more prone to be socially isolated, although it is very crucial for them to stimulate their brains with many new information and challenges. Exposure to so many different stimuli and environment can frustrate them and may lead them to become more introvert and isolated. This can lead them to always stay inside, not wanting to go out, and even wake up and do nothing. Their brain feels safe in similar environments and settings, like all of us, right? My grandma is like this, and she doesn't want to go out to a supermarket, wants to lay down whole day, but at the same time, there is this shame and guilt as her toxic driving force that is making her to come up with stories of how she's constantly active, how she's taking walks frequently, how she's cleaning and cooking, and many, many more hows, which are the opposites of her definition of laziness. Experiencing this and witnessing her coming up with stories of how she's constantly on the go and also excuses for how she couldn't do something as if she were doing it for many years. Seeing her trying to show herself and prove herself as busy and as productive stir up anger in me. It takes away the compassion that I have for her. Now, on to another story. Something quite interesting happened the other day. For the last couple of weeks, I'm at our summer house, which is a 2-story house. In Turkey, there are lots of street animals, cats and dogs especially. In our community here, we have many cats. And we always feed them with cheese, typically a cheese similar to feta cheese. This is important. Fish, yogurt, and milk. And now, since I came here, there is this one quite chubby cat who is constantly around me, and it has quite peculiar taste. It prefers not to drink yogurt or milk or eat feta cheese, but it prefers to only eat cheese, a type of cheese that is especially used for melting, in sandwiches, toasts, burgers, and omelets. Every time she comes, she doesn't leave the front door until she gets a piece of this kind of a cheese. What happened was that 2 times she entered through the door, which was left ajar, and went upstairs. And by luck, I heard little footsteps and one time her cute meow, so I let her out. But the other day, I was about to leave the house, and so some of her friends, I believe they're friends and not enemies, outside of our door. So I gave them some yogurt, and I thought, I wonder where she is. I left home, and more than 2 hours later, I came back and started working. I was sitting downstairs and working on my computer for a good 15-20 minutes, and suddenly I heard little tapping and cracking sound coming from upstairs. Now, okay, this house is made from wood, so I don't pay attention to every cracking sound, and we are surrounded by nature. So squirrels, birds, mice are expected guests in our garden and sometimes inside of the house as well. The cracking sound turned into tappings, and tappings turned into little unrhythmic footsteps. I was about to go upstairs and I thought, let me say pss, pss, pss. That is how we call cats in Turkish. So I did that and there was no reaction. I was about to stand up. I heard little footsteps again. So I said pss, 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 again. And this time she decided to say meow. I kept saying pss, 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 and let her out. Now, it has been quite a time since she has been locked in this house. It is at least a good 2 hours. Well, okay, spoiler alert here. Something happened last night, which I'm going to share at the end of the episode. And it changed my whole hypothesis. But anyway, back to the story. After I let her out, she didn't immediately leave the front door. So again, I gave her that specific cheese she likes. And at that moment, I had flashbacks of hearing cracking sounds more than usual. The night before when I was trying to fall asleep. I don't think she was here during the night and the whole day, but my mind was coming up with some scenarios. Why I wanted to share this incident with you is the meaning I attributed to these cats, and especially this specific one who wants to play, be loved, and fed. Since I came here to our summer house, I've been dealing with some health issues regarding my grandma. With my granddad, we're constantly taking her to hospital, in which I had to face with some adult issues, figuring out the systems in public hospitals, dealing with delays, traffic, finding car park, bureaucracy, and many, many so-called daily hassles, which are new in my adult world. And this created a deep anger within me. I had to face with this anger, where it was coming from and what its triggers were. This anger was taking away my empathy, the kindness I have, my understanding and compassion for others, but more to myself. I was angry for the systems of our government. I was angry to all the people almost included in that system. I was almost angry for my grandma to be in this situation. I was blaming her almost, and this was creating a resentment within me. I was angry toward my granddad and how he was handling this situation. I was angry that I didn't get to spend time on working on my business and the podcast. I was angry to other drivers who were going slow, keeping in mind they were driving within the speed limit. because technically they were keeping me away from reaching home earlier. And every time I return back home with these anger, every time this resentment reaches its peak inside of me, these cats come to my front door, especially that chubby one. There's this book by a wonderful Turkish yogi, and I can easily say that he's a great philosopher of our time. One of his books is about animal archetypes, in which he mentions animals as big support systems in our spiritual world. And if we were to understand the meanings of each animal and their duty in our lives, we can consciously help each other. In his book, he mentions that the archetype of cat represents healing, both in relationships and illnesses. It heals our feminine sides, which are based on creativity, reproduction, and generation. The archetype of cat eliminates questioning and allows us to enjoy things as they are. Now, this is quite crucial for me. I've always had problems and issues with accepting situations and people as they are. I've always looked for an area in which it can be improved. My mind has always worked to find the ideal about that situation and person. This creates conflict. At least there's this constant conflict within me. Before I started studying at uni, this conflict was very rebellious against the systems that we live in as a country and as the world. I was full of judgment and it was draining me inside. Then I got to spend some years studying philosophy, which gave me the framework, the ground, and the base for my internal conflict to be critical, analytical, and fruitful. Look at this podcast. It is a fruit of this inner conflict and constant questioning I have. Now, I'm not saying that philosophy was the only way which helped me to position my constant inner questioning into a healthier framework, because it wasn't. I think my dedication to do the inner work of untangling my conditionings, trying to understand where they're coming from, finding myself, creating conditions in which I can flourish, reading the lines between my reactions, trying to come up with responses instead of subconscious reactions, and many, many more things were possible also thanks to my yoga and meditation practices and spiritual journey alongside all the philosophical work. But here again, me with my inner conflict that is trying to rebel against the world and its systems, against our hardwired conditionings as humans, and against all the things we bottled up inside of us, and against all the things we ignored to heal. Now I'm facing this inner conflict in the case of my grandma. This is my constant questioning and inner conflict, trying to depict herself as a resentment and anger. And I'm being tested if I was going to react with these feelings, which are basically signs of there is something deeper going on inside of me that needs some love, compassion, understanding, and healing, or I was going to stop and use my conscious responsive side. And this episode is the way to the second option. The second option, trying to sit with these emotions and make sense of them, see the meaning and origin of them, see the triggers. Back to cats. They are all around me and technically inside of the house, trying to give me some messages about acceptance, love, compassion, from which enjoyment and deep understanding come. They're also here reminding me that I am doing the healing work. Here, I want to differentiate between healing and recovery. Recovery assumes that we are going to go back to a state where we are not ill anymore. We don't so-called malfunction anymore. There's a focus on going back to normal functioning or formerly belonged healthy state. But healing is different. I think healing requires us to understand and trust the big picture. Healing sometimes may look like having a flu, and sometimes it may look like eating a homemade soup, and sometimes it may be a hug coming from our loved ones. Healing is naked from all our labels of good and bad. Having flu is so-called a bad thing. We wouldn't want that. But what if it is a protection mechanism of our body and on our mind? If you are draining yourself by working hard, traveling a lot, not taking rest, then the system gives you an opportunity and a reminder to rest. It obliges you to rest because if it wasn't the case, the whole system is going to shut down. So this is bigger picture. Healing doesn't assume we're going to go back to where we were as healthy, as normal, whatever that normal is. Healing tells you that, look, this is a long journey. Life is not a momentary thing. It is cumulative. On the behalf of my grandma, she is on the journey of healing. We all are. But I don't know if she's going to recover. I'm sure she's going to get better, but that better may not imply recovery. Going back to where she was. But the cats are trying to show me, they try to say that the resentment and anger you feel deep inside of you as you're passing through these experiences, there is some deep healing work you got to do. Yes, you are trying to heal your grandma and she's going to get better, but meanwhile, there is some work you got to do as well. Every time my grandma used to say, and still says to this day, that she's doing cleaning every day, she's cooking for every dinner, she's doing that, she's doing this, while the truth is she's not doing anything. Although she's trying to show that she is staying productive and active, she is on the go constantly. You know the phrase hustle culture, right? It refers to the idea that we should always be productive, on the go, working hard to achieve success, but more so to prove ourselves either to ourselves and or to others. Hustle culture glorifies busyness. It tells that you are worthy, you are successful, you are whatever you want to be only if you keep working hard. It gives you the message that our self-worth is tied to productivity. The harder we work and the more we achieve, the more valuable we are. The phrase hustle culture is mostly used in work settings and career, but I think it is more than that. It is literally a culture which, as I said before, glorifies busyness. It is almost a social norm to stay busy and to be on the go constantly. My lovely grandma, who has dementia and Alzheimer's, who is forgetting many things, cannot and won't forget these encrypted norms and stereotypes. Because norms are so much intertwined with shame, guilt, and blame, which are quite big dangers against our identity, against how we define the person we are. She cannot say that, yes, all I did was lying down today because my hip is killing me, or my back. Or my social battery is very low today. I'm dealing with deep feelings today. She cannot say that. Instead, she says, stupid me. In what world I even lie down or sleep during the day? I cannot even sleep at night. When did you see me sitting down? I'm always out doing gardening stuff or here in the kitchen cooking or cleaning the house. My lovely grandma, I see your pain. I see your stuckness inside of this idea that has always told you that You are worthy if you're always busy with doing something. Compassion. That's what I feel right now as I said these words. I feel a deep compassion instead of resentment. This is healing. Trying to see behind the feelings is healing. They're coming us with a message which will take us to healing. My brain nowadays feels like this. You should prepare the post. Let's schedule the upcoming Beyond Definition posts. That idea you just thought would be brilliant for the website. Let me write that down. Well, actually, no. Let's mention it on the podcast. What did I eat today? Oh, then I should eat more protein-based today. Did I move today? No. I have many, many things to do. I cannot prioritize movement today. That was tiring, right? But this literally how inside of my brain sounds like when I'm constantly on the go. I think the need to be constantly productive is covering something up. Something that we don't want to face, we're afraid to face, we don't feel confident enough or good enough to face. We are creating this narrative that says, look, all those things that you did today, you were very productive and therefore you are worthy. You are successful. Well, darling, unfortunately, that doesn't work like that. Or maybe I should say, fortunately. Thankfully, our self-worth is not measured by anything external. It is not tied how productive we are, how wealthy we are, how we are perceived by others, how we feel in a specific moment. In previous episodes, I talked about my constant need and passion for self-development and also mentioned the downsides of it. The constant pursuit of self-improvement is another facet of toxic productivity, I think, because it can create a constant pressure to optimize every aspect of our lives, from having a casual chat with our neighbor to reading a novel. This can lead you to feelings of inadequacy and a never-ending to-do list, a list of things to improve myself with. In our minds, there's this constant battle between which one activity is more productive than the other. Our bodies are restless. They constantly want to swipe through something, whether a page or an Instagram post. Our minds are constantly hungry to be exposed to something so that we don't get to stay with our thoughts. We are almost afraid where our thoughts and feelings takes us if we were to stay without doing anything. Like without listening to a song, to a podcast, reading a book, scrolling through social media, anything that keeps us busy. I saw this reel on Instagram the other day. I don't exactly remember how she said it, but she recorded her dad going on a 13-hour flight without any book, any newspaper, any ways he can listen to music, nothing but his pure existence on this 13-hour long flight. Wow. How, right? Forget 13 hours. I got impatient, frustrated, resentful in an hour waiting for my grandma to be called from the doctor's office. And I had my phone and my headphones with me all the time. My mind was constantly battling all these options and ideal scenarios against each other at that moment. What would happen if public health services could have been better 10% more? What would happen if the systems work in a hospital? What would I have done regarding my work if I wasn't here? Oh, the Instagram post that I plan to create. Oh, forget the post, the new podcast episode. Okay, calm down. Just put on a mellow podcast about mythology that can feed your soul. This was a recap of my mind. Waiting in that line, it wasn't even 30 seconds long. I'm sure you can relate. You know, this is called having a monkey mind. A monkey keeps jumping from one tree branch to another constantly, right? If it sees a banana, it grabs it while it has already one on its other hand. When there's a shiny object inside of a purse, it goes for it and grabs it. But when it sees another shinier one, it jumps straight into that. Unfortunately, our untrained minds are like this. They go after every line, every thread of thought. Then what happens to this monkey mind of ours when we go to the shower or to the bathroom? And it happens to come up with most creative and unique ideas, which we tried to come up with while we were sitting in front of the computer for hours. Well, let me tell you what happens. It takes a breath, a deep sigh. Our minds take a deep breath when we stop trying to be productive and trying to decide which one is more productive than the other. It's like a hot stove, you know? We cook brilliant, tasty dishes on it, right? But where most of the dishes get their ultimate taste is the resting phase, when we turn off the stove and let it rest for a while, or before we start cooking it. The food has to absorb the liquid with which it is being cooked, either before or after. A freshly baked bread has to cool down in order to get firm and reach its ultimate tastiness. If we were to cut it while it is still hot, it turns into a gummy and dough-like texture. A freshly cooked lasagna has to rest for a while before we eat it in order to let the lasagna sheets absorb the sauce and not to get soup-like. In order to eat a juicy, flavored piece of meat or fish, we rest in a bowl of seasonings, sometimes milk or oil, before cooking it, right? Or a dough, any kind of dough, pizza dough, bread dough, we rest it for it to rise and yield a better texture in the kneading and baking process. Now, when do we let our doughs, our minds, full of thoughts and ideas, to rise and get fluffy? When do we let our freshly cooked dough to rest and cool down? In the shower, in the bathroom, when we put our heads to the pillow at night, when we try to meditate, when we are doing mundane things and repetitive things like ironing, folding laundry, and when we are driving, especially on a highway. Those times are downtimes we create for our brains while we keep our body occupied with something else. Of course, the ideal is to reach a control over our minds, therefore our thoughts, where we don't have to occupy our bodies with something else while we give a quality, rejuvenating downtime to our brains and minds, where we are not gonna be dragged by every thought pass inside of our minds. Downtimes are opportunities for us to let things simmer. Let all the ideas and thoughts simmer and find their places and reach their ultimate potential in our story. And I think these are not only times, meaning 30 minutes, a couple of hours, but more so they can be like periods in our lives. In one of the recent coaching sessions I had with a client, she said, I couldn't work on my business this week. I didn't even do one thing about it. And the conversation unfolded, and after a while, the session went into a quite heavy and deep topic about other personal triggers and deep fears. At some point, I told her that when you said this at the beginning of the session, that you didn't do anything regarding launching your business this week, I thought, how wonderful. That means you took a time to let things simmer, to let things find their places within you. The system we live in works perfectly, including all the things we label as good or bad. When we have creative energy and fuel that keeps us going, we push it. We go hard on ourselves. We try to use every bit of it. But the opposites exist together, and they exist because the other side exists. So if we are on our go, go, go mode, then there has to be a down, down, down mode. And we should be okay with it. Going only hard on the go, go, go mode is toxic productivity. It is a place that gives us the message that your worth is based on the things you do and achieve. Therefore, you cannot rest. There's no time to rest. There are millions of things to do and achieve in this world, but there's no time. This is toxic. This is not helpful in the long term. This makes us constantly check our phones. This makes us feel uneasy when we are waiting in the line because we think we are missing out on an opportunity in which we can be more productive. This makes our life purpose blurry because it creates an illusion that our sense of purpose solely comes from our work, our achievements, and success. We become like machines with this concept of toxic productivity. Because the downtimes, the times where we let all the things we learned and created simmer, we give them a unique voice, touch, and texture from us so that they can become authentic to us and we can share them with the world in a way that is unique to us. We are refusing this fruitful time so much so that even the brain starts to delete our memories. In the case of my grandma, all we left is the shame and guilt of not following the toxic norm of productivity. Instead of compassion, there was anger and resentment inside of me when my grandma did this. When she was trying to show everyone and her family that she doesn't take any downtime, all she do is being on the go, and this is why she can be worthy of our love. This is the message behind her actions. And why I get resentful when I see her behavior is because I have it inside of me. A mirror is being held to my face, showing me that look, the thing that bugs you and creates anger within you is there because you see a piece of yourself in the actions of your grandma. You see the parts of yourself which are resisting to rest, to calm down, to let things simmer. The parts which want to be on the go constantly, and the parts which tied your self-worth with the things you achieve and don't achieve. I want to conclude our conversation reminding all of us that downtime isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. And if there is any guilt, shame, and blame around creating these times for ourselves, I'm inviting all of us to sit with those feelings and try to understand where they're coming from. May my stories today be a light and inspiration in your journey. As our conversation for today fades away, may you find your echoes of it that resonate within you. Thanks for listening today. This is Inner Dialogues with Ecem, a place where you discover your inner you, a place where you belong. If you're still here, here's a little funny insight on the cat incident. Funny enough, as I was recording this episode, I heard my granddad shouting, trying to shoot a cat that was trying to enter their house this time. Ay. Life is full of meaning and science, huh? Everywhere, all around us, if we know how to look at it, if we choose to see it. One more insight. I had a workshop last night, an online live workshop, so I stopped recording the episode and I heard the same tapping and cracking sound as the teacher was guiding us to a meditation. And I tried to stay focused, but there was this scratching sound and tapping sound. After the meditation ended, I stand up and said, pss, pss, pss. And then again, the tapping sounds increased, and then I kept doing pss, pss, pss. Then I heard a meow sound. She was again coming from upstairs, but this time I found where she entered. She was entering the house from this window, which has apparently a loose mosquito net. What was basically happening that I was letting her out through the door, but she was keep coming back from the window. So anyway, now I closed that window. But of course, she's still here waiting for the cheese she likes. So let me give her that, and we'll speak very soon. Take care.